Well, hello, friends. Here we are, continuing with letters on occult meditation, and we are on program 41. I was hoping to continue yesterday, but okay, I couldn't quite do that. But, well, at least we'll have a 1 hour program today, at least that. And we're working on this section on mantras. And he tells us that this is a very important section. Mantric forms connected with fire. Perhaps it would be of value if I touched somewhat upon the part fire plays in evolution and on the various departments connected with fire that may be found within our solar system. Various departments in our solar system. All right, what does he mean by that? Let's see. I especially emphasize it because in meditation, the domain of fire is entered, and because of its prime importance. The departments in which fire plays its part are 5. Let us therefore enumerate them, and I will deal first with fire in the macrocosm and later show its microcosmic correspondence. Okay. So number 1, the vital, let's see if I can, yeah, he's done it this way. Okay. I think I can perhaps do it this way first, and just to help spot these things, you know, because there's so many outlines that it's easy to get lost. And finally 5th. Okay. Now, you know, that number 5 is important because we learned when we divide the lower fires and we look at the 5-pointed star that there are the internal fires, and they're divided in 2. There are the mental fires divided in 2, and then there are the fires which have to do with the spirit, and they so far, at least in this solar system at this time, are not divided. So let us see here. Listing these 5 fires. First, macrocosmically, which means probably, usually it means the solar system. But of course, there are greater and greater macrocosms, obviously. The vital fire that animates the objective solar system, for instance, as evidenced in the internal economy of our planet and the central ball of fire, the sun. There is a hollow earth theory, but also a reference to a central fire within the earth. So, okay. The vital fire that animates the solar system. And I'm going to try everything I can to avoid getting one of those runaway computers because I pressed the wrong chord here. So number one, the vital fire which animates the objective solar system. And it seems to be a kind of internal fire. Secondly, that mysterious something called by HPB Fohat, of which some of the manifestations are electricity, certain forms of light, and the magnetic fluid wherever encountered. Now, this is quite a subject. I can see that. Okay. That mysterious something. Indeed, when we try to define Fohat, it is difficult. And usually we say, we often call Fohat, by the name cosmic electricity. Okay, and third, the fire of the mental plane. Interesting how he seems to be, we can't tell whether he's rising here or whether he's just naming, because it seems like he's going both up and down in terms of the status of fire. Fire of the mental plane. Okay. And we have studied those, both on the cosmic physical plane, the higher and lower Agni Chaitans, and I suppose we can consider them as animated by these fires. And then fourth, the fire elementals, who in their essence are fire itself. I hope he elaborates on all this, because there's enough here, but not quite enough that we can elaborate the subject. And then fifth, the vital spark we call the divine flame, latent in each human being, which distinguishes our solar logos from all other logoi, and which is the sum of all his characteristics. Okay, and that's interesting about distinguishing our solar logos. Now, sometimes I want to say this, sometimes the vital spark is distinguished from the divine flame. And we're talking about that spark hanging from the divine flame by the finest thread of Fohat. I wonder if I can find a way here to get the quotation of this. Well, I think I'm not doing too well here finding that quote. I probably have one word incorrect. It's the idea is that from the divine flame, the vital spark, which is the monad, is suspended by the finest thread of Fohat. But you know, when you get one word incorrect, or even a version of the word incorrect, then it doesn't show up. So in any case, the vital spark we call the divine flame, latent in each human being. And as I say, there is a distinction there. In some reference, it may be Might be a HPB reference. Oh, nothing like a reference lost. You know what I mean? It is frustrating, but the idea is that we are all part of that divine flame here in the solar system. And the monad is that which has its home or finds its home within the sun. And then we look here at the fire elementals, which are the essence of fire itself. And of course, in a treatise on cosmic fire, the three main fires, friction, fire by friction, solar fire, and electric fire. So meditation takes us into the realm of fire. And as I say, I'm using two computers simultaneously here because some of the keys or two keyboards simultaneously. So, all right. Of which some of the mysterious something called Fohat and let's emphasize what some of those manifestations of Fohat may be. Notice that it's only certain forms of light and not all forms of light. And magnetic fluid, it's got to be subtle. And we have to learn more about that. And I wonder if the three can be divided into relationship with the three aspects of divinity. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so basically what we've been looking at here, the departments in our solar system are 5. And there are 5 different kinds of fires. We have the vital fire. We have Fohat. And of course, there must be distinctions with all of these. We have fire of the mental plane. I wonder why he holds that as distinct. Sometimes I think that Fohat is everything that has to do with every fire that has to do with the personality of the solar logos, you know, as found on the various cosmic planes and subplanes, the lower 18 cosmic subplanes. And then fire elementals, I think, can be found on quite a low level. Usually their name is preceded by the word Agni, but particularly the Agni Suryans. And then the vital spark or divine flame. We're looking for within ourselves for that very essence of fire. And in one way, that which we are essentially is the essence of fire. All these differentiations of fire are practically differentiations of one and the same thing. Well, you know, I'm kind of trying to say that, but let's see how DK looks at that one and the same thing. They are basically the same, though in manifestation they are diverse. Okay. Well, okay. They are basically the same, though in manifestation they are diverse. as is so often the case with emanation, diversity occurs in emanation, but not in the source of the emanation. So all emanations are essentially the same when dealing, let us say, with the emanations coming from the universal logos. And they originated fundamentally from cosmic fire found on the cosmic mental levels. And I suppose our question has to be on which of the cosmic mental levels, as there are a number of them. For instance, our causal body, the causal body of our planet, is found on the third subplane of cosmic mental levels, but the causal body of the solar logos is found on the first subplane of the cosmic mental levels. And maybe, kind of a possible hint to follow out is that the causal body of the sacred planets may be found on the second level of the cosmic mental plane. So they originated fundamentally from cosmic fire found on the cosmic mental levels, all of these different fires. Now, as I said, Agni, Brahma, Fohat, in a way, they can be considered to be the fires found on the lower 18 cosmic subplanes. Not the systemic subplanes, but something much greater than that. And here is where we would have the map. See, these are all really cosmic subplanes, the ones on which the cursor is focusing. And of course, the detail of the cosmic astral plane is not given to us, even though some have speculated. A little bit of detail is given in the chart of the unmanifested creative hierarchies, or the liberated creative hierarchies. And we're shown practically nothing at all above these points, no details. So we have some kind of equivalence that I might call Agni, Fohat, Brahma on the lower 18 cosmic subplanes. But what is DK talking about here? Is he talking about the higher 3 cosmic subplanes, or somehow the lower mental cosmic subplanes? Well, these are speculative matters for us, but the more certain we are about the larger picture, the clearer we can be about smaller pictures contained microcosmically within that larger macrocosmic picture. So all of these types of fire, they originated fundamentally from cosmic fire on the cosmic mental levels. And we have found in studying cosmic fire that even what we call the will is, or at least as we can appropriate it on our own lower level to some very attenuated extent, originates from the cosmic mental plane, and not from the, well, maybe finally it does originate from the cosmic monadic and cosmic logoic planes, but for practical purposes and at this time, and in a solar system which is a solar system emphasizing the soul, the will is originating from the cosmic mental plane. Yeah, let's just see about that for a moment. Okay, I think what I did there, I was pantomiming. So let's see if I can resume what I was saying. Notice that we're dealing with the solar logos, and everything is originating from the cosmic mental plane. The ray of intelligent activity, probably that is what the Buddha touched in his cosmic touch. The ray of intelligent love, also, I think, originating in this particular solar system from the cosmic mental plane, but involving, of course, the cosmic astral plane. And then the ray of intelligent will. So that is not, I mean, ultimately, cosmic monadic may be the source. But for practical purposes, and in this particular solar system, the will has to come through the cosmic soul or the cosmic causal body, no matter from what higher cosmic source it may originate. So this is the ray of intelligent will coming from, it's the ray of cosmic mind, and in its evolution parallels that of cosmic love. But as yet its vibration is slower and its development more retarded. This is definitely and deliberately so, and is due to the underlying purpose and choice of the solar logos. He knows what he's developing, who seeks on his high level, as do his reflections, the sons of men, to achieve a more rounded out development. Of course, interesting about the roundedness, as particularly the second ray and Jupiter give the rounded appearance, and he therefore concentrates on the development of cosmic love. And all of these three aspects of divinity are originating in some way from the cosmic mental plane. Okay, now kind of going on here. It's always a danger that I forget to turn on release the pause, and then I've talked to myself for a long time with nothing being recorded for you. So cosmic fire, all of these 5 different differentiations of fire, they are one and the same thing, and they are originating from the cosmic mental levels. I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. It may all seem very academic, but later it will be of considerable value when we try to work with the law of analogy and even more closely with the law of correspondences. In the microcosm, you find this 5-fold differentiation again, and it is in the recognition of the correspondence that illumination comes and the purpose of meditation is achieved. So if we can somehow understand the correspondence between the macrocosm and microcosm so much that we don't know, will be filled in, at least by analogic suggestion. The analogy may not be perfect in every respect. So let's see, there are 5 here, so I'll do the same thing. You know, so I always recall that DK said that the 4th ray mind was of great use in his work. That doesn't mean that other types of mind are not necessarily. But I think it's because of the analogical ability of the fourth ray and how he wants us to be able to operate analogically when we're dealing with such books as A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, and some of the more academically oriented books. I'm just making a little distinction here. No good reason for using this color, but there it is. So what about the correspondences in the microcosm? Well, there's the vital fires that keep the internal economy of the human being, the microcosmic system, in full manifestation. Well, we have the latent fire and the radiatory fire, or active fire. One is more physically in hearing, and the other is etheric. At the cessation of that inner burning, death ensues. So, what can I say? Stay in incarnation by keeping warm. All right. I mean, the fires have to burn, and so often we notice, when death comes and extraction from the causal body, the body turns, from the physical body turns cold. And so at the cessation, the inner burning of that inner burning, death ensues, and the physical objective system passes into obscuration. Yes, and so it is in the macrocosm. We hear also, the word is used, Mars presently is in obscuration. Is the word used the same way? Is the word, obscuration. Okay, I really should have that over here. Used in the same way. What is the meaning of the fact that Mars is presently in obscuration? Presently, there are some people that have a very strong Martian contact, and they want to move everybody into colonies on Mars, because they're quite convinced that Earth is going down and will no longer be habitable for humanity. I don't think it's exactly what the planetary logos of Earth or of Mars or the solar logos have in mind. Just as the sun, here, let me hopefully, just as the sun is the center of our system, so the heart is the focal point for the microcosmic heat. Sun and heart equivalency. So sun and heart equivalency. And similarly, as the earth is vitalized by the same heat and is, for our chain, the point of densest matter, and of greatest physical heat, so the lower generative organs are the secondary center in the majority of cases for the internal fire. The correspondence is accurate, mysterious, and interesting. So there is an item of information which I may have been searching for a long time. Can't be sure, but what place does our Earth globe play in the Earth chain? You know, was it the base of the spine center? Was it the heart center because it's 4 down in the chain of 7? But he seems to be suggesting something else. Of course, this will have to be looked into. The Earth is vitalized by the same heat and is, for our chain, the point of densest matter and of greatest physical heat. And, you know, when we talk about density of matter, it's often the sacral center, which, though home to the mental elemental, is greatly associated with dense matter because via the sacral center, the vehicle of density is produced. So the lower generative organs are the secondary center in the majority of cases for the internal fire. And then, you know, we'll have to ask, sometimes when you don't know the answer, you just put up a question, you know. Is the Earth globe the sacral center of the Earth chain? And I've tried to explain that though, that's the one that can sometimes happen, you know. So, you know, it is important to determine which ones of the globes stand for which chakras. The Earth globe is the very bottom of the sevenfold chain, at least as the chain is usually depicted. And, you know, you could say, well, it's the base of the spine because it's the lowest, or it is the heart because it's the 4th. And I just wonder here about the reference to the sacral center. The reference to the sacral. Well, it certainly produces a huge number of physical forms that we do not find, apparently, in the other globes, because their lowest level is not dense physical. The lowest level of the moon was, and maybe there's a mystery there, but the lowest plane of the other globes, and even now the what can it be called? It's no longer the moon globe, it's something else. And the chain is no longer the moon chain, it's the Saturn chain, and it does not have a dense physical appearance. So he says it's mysterious and interesting and accurate. So he encourages us to somehow dig into these matters and see if we can solve it. All right, we're talking about 5 types of microcosmic fire, which are corresponding to the 5 types here of fire, which he says there are 5 departments in the solar system in which fire plays its part. And there are apparently 5 departments in the microcosmic system in which fire plays its part. So we have first the vital fires that keep the internal economy of the human being going, in full manifestation. And that's the internal fire and the active fire, or the latent fire, let's call it that, and the internal fire, borrowing from cosmic fire. Okay. At least from references in cosmic fire. Then, second, the correspondence in the microcosm to Fohat is found in the pranic currents that, through the etheric body, keep the dense physical body vitalized and magnetized. Well, we can understand vitalization, and then I suppose we have to try to understand what role is played by magnetization. Why is magnetization necessary? Does magnetization have something to do with coherence? That would be a question. The resources of the pranic fluid are illimitable and little understood. And in their proper comprehension lies the secret of perfect health. And we will, touch on this later, he says. We are entering an age where the 7th ray will be so prominent, and pranic fluid will be the medium of health rather than the drugs which at present we take, and which are sort of deal with the latent fire and with the dense physical body. So the Fohati correspondence, and maybe this will help us understand what Fohat really is. Therefore, let's just say, therefore, can we understand Fohat macrocosmically as cosmic prana? Maybe. And then what would be its source? We have prana coming from the sun. We also have earth prana, apparently absorbed through the pores of the skin. And there must be other sources of prana, even beyond our solar logos. And maybe, a cosmic mental source of prana may be involved when dealing with the prana that vitalizes the entire solar system, just like the pranic fluid from the sun vitalizes the human microcosmic system and other systems in different kingdoms. The resources of the pranic fluid are illimitable and little understood. Well, that seems obvious as I try to understand. And in their proper comprehension lies the secret of perfect health. Whenever a term like illimitable comes up, I guess I get literal about it. I mean, at least what I consider to be a finite universe, is there any such thing as illimitability? But that's just a picky philosophical point. And, it's like how Alice Bailey uses the word infinite. It means for her maybe like huge, inexhaustible number, and not getting picky about it from the philosophical sense. It just means overwhelmingly large and not capable of being counted or reckoned with mathematically in a practical way. So, as I said, the seventh ray, which is particularly associated with the etheric body, is coming in strongly, and pranic culture will be significantly applied, and will result in perfect health during the age of Aquarius. Whatever period in the age of Aquarius that may be, it may not be the first decanate under Saturn. It may be more in the Mercurian decanate, which has more to do with the air signs, and Gemini. And Gemini has directly to do with the etheric body, as does Aquarius. And Aquarius has for one of its decanate rulers, the middle one, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini. So it seems more likely then that the mysteries of prana will be revealed. Now, the third type of microcosmic fire, the correspondence to the fire of the mental plane, is easily demonstrable. Maybe for someone who can see as DK sees and knows what he knows. But we talk about it all the time, because it has to do with the coming of the Lords of the Flame and the solar angels and the angel of the presence, and that, the soul in the soul body on the higher mental plane. So this is the correspondence for the work of the Lords of Flame in implanting the spark of mind has so developed and grown that now the fire of intellect is to be seen burning in all civilized people. All energies that turn to the feeding of that spark and to the turning of it to the greatest profit. And so cultivation of the soul illumined mind. That's what's happening. And this hints that maybe the fire of the cosmic mental plane is related to the higher cosmic mental plane. We were asking that question before. What is the source of this type of fire when he says cosmic mental? He didn't, distinguish or differentiate between the lower cosmic mental plane and the higher cosmic mental plane. But maybe, maybe that's how we learn, by dealing with an area we do know something about, namely the soul dynamics for the human being, and then transferring that to the macrocosm, and then assuming that if they are similar, corresponding, analogic, that in fact it will be the higher mental plane that we're dealing with in a cosmic sense. Now, the fire elementals are known in some measure in the microcosm by thought forms conjured up and vitalized by man, whose thought power suffices to do so. Not all people, even yet, can really think or are inclined to think. And there are groups that I guess DK would call not yet civilized, although civilization was reaching a pretty high point at the end of Lemuria. But those would be for the advanced types. And yet not necessarily just the moon chain types, who had not really come in yet until, the third subrace of the Atlantean root race. So they would have had to been, these civilized types at the end of Lemuria would have had to be those in whom the spark of mind was implanted, and for whom an angel of the presence was attached as a subsidiary of the solar angel. At least that's the way I'm configuring it in my mind. So fire elementals, he's talking about in relation to thought forms, but of course, the fire elementals that are the Agni Chaitans are also fire elementals. So let's see if he deals with that. These thought forms, built by the man who can think strongly, are vitalized by his life or capacity to heat and last as long as he has the power to animate them, are vitalized by his life. Life is here, the term life. Life is here described as the capacity to heat up, to bring warmth. So this is not for long at this time, as the real power of thought is little comprehended. Well, in other words, I guess we don't create very lasting thought forms. However, the hierarchy planted, we're told, zodiacal thought forms way back in Atlantean days, and they have persisted. So obviously they had that power to, hierarchy had that power to sustain the thought forms. In the fifth great cycle, which for this chain will see the culmination of the fifth principle of mind, this correspondence will be more understood. At present, the connection is necessarily obscure. Again, the mental elemental has, initially its home within the sacral center, astral elemental within the solar plexus, and the vital physical elemental within the base of the spine center. So, but interesting that the elementals are referred to only as the mental elementals when dealing with the microcosmic human frame. I would have expected the Agni Chaitans to be mentioned. I guess there are, elementals on every level, those involutionary lives. Anything that has the name Agni in front of it there in the personality has its elemental form. So the man who can think strongly, which is obviously not everybody, and even the masses today are very much Atlantean in their consciousness, easily swayed by glamour, more so than by illusion. As the real power of thought is little comprehended. But in the fifth great cycle, and what is that cycle? I think it is a round within our planetary chain. But it could be, it could also be a scheme round, which would be however the circle is done within our planetary scheme rather than just in our planetary chain. I think there's a lot of obscurity there about different moments when rounds are discussed, whether they are the more customary chain rounds or the hinted at scheme rounds. So, but actually it is clarified because he says, which for this chain, right? So therefore, so this is a clarification, and it seems to be a chain round. The culmination of the fifth principle of mind. And of course, when it's going to be I think we're still pretty much in the fourth scheme round now as well. And when the time comes, there will be a fifth, and then the power of Manas will be even more understood. So he does introduce some obscurities here. Okay, and then the fifth point is the vital spark latent in every human being, which marks him out as of the same nature as the Solar Logos, at least temporarily. I mean, we all have other paths, I think, by which we descended. I mean, the question is, were we always part and parcel of that particular great being called our Solar Logos, or given the fact that there are so many paths on the ways of higher evolution that, the Solar Logos did not descend via all of those paths, can't descend via all of them. But this is interesting. And then I would turn to initiation, human and solar, and I will see if I finds home. There's only one place where that occurs. So, and it says, thus the solar Lord, the inner reality, the Son of the Father, and the thinker on his own plane becomes the intermediary between that which is of the earthy, personality, I guess, and even more so the dense physical vehicle, and that which finds its home within the sun. That's got to be the monad. at least in my view. So this is page 196 of the initiation, human and solar. And I'll just flash that into visibility for a moment, because I always forget to do that, you know. There it is, page 196. Okay, and now go back to where we are, where we have been studying. Okay, so I just want to, okay, I said page 196, didn't I? And I'll make this a lot smaller. And let's make that quite a bit smaller. And oh, any color will do, won't it? At this point. But we are talking about the central color, so I'll just use what I've been using. Okay. And coming down a little bit. Well, all of these little adjustments, pardon me for them. Okay. So the vital spark, in other words, what it seems to be is that the quality of our monad marks us out as belonging to one or other solar logos, and at least temporarily, and while manifesting in this solar system, we all seem to have a vital spark associated with the solar logos of this solar system. Well, we have to investigate that, because, you know, we're supposed to ascend by the path by means of which we descend. Now that, of course, will take us into reaches far beyond anything we can fathom. You know, what about the galaxy we're in, and how did that entity come into being, and why are we associated with it, you know, or maybe different families of galaxies and so forth. We all begin, however, I think, within the one being that I've been calling the universal logos. Universe is one of those words that can be used for a solar system, or sometimes even a galaxy, an island universe. But when I use that term universal, I do mean most generally the grand entirety, which includes every type of manifestation, or from which every type of manifestation goes forth emanatively. The whole question of how to produce the many out of the one through emanation is something I think that the Buddhists did take up in their tankas and you know, their art, and obviously in their philosophy that the art was meant to represent. But the details of those methods of dividing the one, apparently dividing the one, is not something we can grapple with yet. So here you have fire as it may be seen in the greater and the lesser systems. The flame and the spark. Well, to me always the spark is derivative of the flame, or a derivation, or for me, the spark always derives from the flame. That's how I see it. And somewhere, probably it's an HPB quotation. We would find that being the case. Well, actually, I'm a little luckier than I thought. Stanza 7 continued. And here it is. And it's the 5th point. And I guess these are translated by Master KH for, well, or are they? Was that the case with? Yeah, I think they are. The spark hangs from the flame by the finest thread of Fohat. It journeys through the 7 worlds of Maya. It stops in the first kingdom and is a metal and a stone. It passes through the 2nd kingdom and behold, a plant. The planet whirls through 7 forms and becomes a sacred animal, the first shadow of the physical man. From the combined attributes of these, Manu, the man, the thinker, is formed. And then it goes on. So there it is, stanza 7, 5th aspect, 5th part, the spark and the flame. And there is a differentiation as we do see. The thread of Fohat is the thread of life before referred to, and she makes commentary. Well, one day we will be in a position to notice all this and see it for ourselves. Okay. So it's stanza 7, section 5, secret doctrine. It's good to know, well, there is a moment of joy called reference found. Of course, we also have to remember there is reference imagined and reference lost. These are things that in the mass of material we cover make for difficulty. We have that feeling that we've seen it and that it confirms what we're saying, but then we can't find it. And sometimes we have the feeling that we've seen it and we never have because it is an imagined reference. So that would apply also to the macrocosmic picture, the spark hanging from the flame by the finest thread of Fohat. So here you have fire as it may be seen in the greater and the lesser systems. And maybe, we should review those presentations so that we have them more accessible for ourselves. And yeah. I think I'll try to go up here a little bit. So, for man, the vital fires keeping the internal economy going. And then, of course, the macrocosm has these two also. And then we have the correspondence, the microcosmic correspondence to Fohat, cosmic electricity, the cosmic prana, or the prana that courses through the microcosmic system, just as it does the cosmic system. And then fire on the mental plane. And apparently we might be justified in saying we seem to be justified in referencing the higher mental plane cosmically, referencing. And then we have the fire elementals. Now, in this particular case, it doesn't say that they are only mental, but they can be known in some measure through thought form building. But maybe there are other ways in the magical process that fire elementals are distinguishable. All of this occultism, when we can be trusted, will be part of our knowledge, and will be building up in our consciousness during the Aquarian and the subsequent Capricornian equinoctial ages. And then the vital spark. Well, there's really only one vital spark in the whole universe. But, you know, for purposes of the one and the many, there have to be just hugely numerous vital sparks. We don't know the number, but these things are all under control, and they will be counted. And we'll do it that way. And maybe I'll just change this to a different color. Okay. So, fire in the greater and lesser systems. I would here sum up for you the purpose of fire in the microcosm and what must be aimed at. You have the three fires. The vital divine spark, yeah, the three fires, indeed. And he repeats it in a number of different ways, so with different terminologies, so I think there's no reason why we shouldn't get it, understand it. The vital divine spark, and we might call this, could be called the monad, and the spark of mind, and we can say implanted by the solar angels. And we have the kundalini, the two, which is the, as we know, the fire at the base of the spine center. The twofold blending of the internal heat and of the pranic current. And so this is blending of latent and active fire. Now, this is a great definition of Kundalini. So, an excellent definition of Kundalini, that's karma, follows. The twofold blending of the internal heat and of the pranic current. the internal heat, we can call it, or latent heat, as it's called in cosmic fire. Now, in studying the foundation of our psychological life, it may not be as interesting to us as to study the psychological life itself. I find it so, and I'm interested very much in the second aspect, and not too much in the material basis, or not equally in the material basis, but we still, for a relatively completed picture, we have to have that material basis. So the vital divine spark, the Kundalini, the spark of mind implanted by the solar angels, but not implanted in all animal men at the time of individualization. And maybe some, well, let's see, the mental unit grew up through the animal kingdom and did not need to be implanted. So the fanning of the mental unit did occur, but not an implantation whereby we would become what Blavatsky calls a hothouse plant, somehow under special cultivation. Here I want to cite a reference from Cosmic Fire 709. The highlighted part is especially the one, but there appears a triangle on the mental plane produced by monastic activity, and this triangle of fire begins slowly to circulate between the monastic permanent atom on the highest subplane of the mental plane, and a point at the center of the egoic lotus, and thence to the mental unit. And here's the point. Mental unit was not an implantation, which has appeared upon the fourth subplane through innate instinct approximating mentality. Instinct towards the light, and obviously it's coming through the animal kingdom as well, and who knows what the lower correspondence might be, even in the plant or mineral, but let's just say for the animal, the third ray and the fifth ray become important in relation to that kingdom. And therefore, it can grow into the mental unit. So the solar angel need not implant the mental unit. It's there, it's growing up. The causal body also has a long history before its vivification by the angel of the presence or solar angel. So for some types of human beings, this mental unit is fanned by the angel of the presence, solar angel, into a condition of greater heat and vitality, activity, rather than having a spark of the presence of the angel of the presence implanted on the higher mental plane or in the brain. There are a number of places of implantation. Suffice it to say, the intimacy which the solar angel of the presence has with certain types of higher human beings does not exist in relation to all. And what I have said, and I think it is true, is that for those human beings individualized on the moon chain, they did not individualize through implantation, but when they came in the fourth chain, the earth chain, when they came in the third sub race of the fourth root race, the Atlantean, a solar angel or angel of the presence was somehow attached to them, and that they began a much more rapid evolutionary trajectory. So here, page 709, Cosmic Fire. Okay. The spark of mind, then, is the second of the fires here. And the Kundalini, the fire of matter, but of matter in a latent state or a latent type of fire and an active type of fire. And the combination of the two give you Kundalini. So this is excellent. The two blending together of the internal heat and the pranic current. Now, sometimes all these fires are called internal, and the fire associated with dense physical matter is called latent, and then the pranic current is called active. So, every once in a while, DK switches his terminology, or at least has some variety in it. So, let's see what he says here. So, in short, fire, five-fold fire, as it may be seen in the greater and lesser systems in the macrocosm and microcosm, and the purpose of fire and what must be aimed at. He wants to sum up here the purpose of fire and what might be aimed at. Now, fire, is basically that which animates, that which moves. When I think about absolute reality, I don't think of fire, but then I think of a trans-universal state, an absolute state in which even fire would be a distinction from what it is, what that beingness or be-ness or absoluteness, names will always fail in this regard. Now, a little more here. Sometimes it's just a question of getting our terms straight, isn't it? So the Kundalini, okay, he calls it the blend of internal and pranic current, or blending of, I'm calling it from Cosmic Fire, the blend of latent fire and active fire. When these three fires, the home of this force, is the center at the base of the spine, and the spleen as the feeder of that heat, and that is significant. That is significant. We cannot ignore the base of the spine as if, it somehow gets involved at the third degree and connects man from the top to the bottom, because this base of the spine is of great significance in the fifth initiation. And thus our earth, as I've said, is of great significance in the fifth initiation of the solar logos, because our earth is the base of the spine in the system of our solar logos. When these three fires, that of the quaternary, that's the I suppose that's the Kundalini fire, of the triad and of the fifth principle, which maybe is the will fire at this time, or there's other ways to look at this as well, personality fire, egoic lotus fire, causal fire, and triadal fire. So again, different terminology. Meet and blend in proper geometrical manner. Each center is adequately vitalized. Every power is sufficiently expressing itself. All impurity and dross is burnt away. So indeed, the Kundalini must be active. The goal is reached. The quaternary, the triad, and the fifth principle, whether from high above, inasmuch as the fifth cosmic principle brings in even what we call the will. But let's just suppose that we're lining them up in the way our charts show us, and there's the quaternary, the spiritual triad, and the middle principle, the soul principle, and the triad is representing the monad. Matter of fact, often when we talk about Atma Buddhi, he says it's equivalent to the monad. So everything's burned away, and the spark has become a flame. And that will take us to that body of flame found in Cosmic Fire, right around page 169 or so. The spark has become a flame, and the flame is part of the great egoic blaze, which animates all of the objective universe. So this is both both a microcosmic and macrocosmic statement. When these three fires, that of the quaternary, of the triad, and of the fifth principle, apparently, manifesting on the plane of mind, whereas the triad manifests partially on the plane of mind, but also on the Buddhic and Atmic planes, meet and blend in proper geometrical manner as God geometrizes, and we don't know the geometry here. Each center, whether macrocosmic or microcosmic, every power, each center is adequately vitalized, every power is sufficiently expressing itself, and all impurity is gone. The goal is reached, the spark becomes a flame, and we will have the body of flame or body of fire, TCF 169. I believe that may be correct. And let's just see if it is correct. And what we would have to do is switch here to Treatise on Cosmic Fire, and 169. Well, we're getting close. Maybe it's 166. Yes, 166 and 167. Okay, the centers, therefore, when functioning properly, so let me make sure that you're actually looking at that, form the body of fire, which eventually is all that is left, first to man in the three worlds and later to the monad. This body of fire is the body incorruptible or indestructible, spoken of by St. Paul, and is the product of evolution, of the perfect blending of the three fires, okay, which ultimately destroy the form. Three fires destroy the form. When the form is destroyed, there is left this intangible spiritual body of fire, one pure flame, distinguished by 7 brilliant centers of intense or burning. This electric fire is the result of the bringing together of the two poles and demonstrates at the moment of completed one-ment the occult truth that our God is a consuming fire. So that's really, I'm going to transpose that over here. And okay, and I'll make, oh, it's quite small. And so it's TCF 166 and 167. I think maybe it's a little too small. We'll try to go a little more visibly here. Yeah, that'll do it. One body of fire. Okay. So you can see a lot of cross-referencing is occurring. DK obviously hadn't written Cosmic Fire yet, but it was elaborated based on some of these statements, I think. And then it became the seed of all further elaboration, whether speaking of magic or psychology or astrology. It's all in a seeded form in a treatise on cosmic fire. Not all, but a great deal of it is. Okay, I know there are other connections here, but we'll just have to let it go. And these three fires blending in a proper geometrical manner, and each such center is vitalized, and the impurity is burnt away, and the goal is reached. So we have to look forward to this festival of fire, the fiery accolade, which lies ahead when we understand it and can manage it, and have proven ourselves and need it. It's not just for our own edification, it's so that it can be applied in service, enacting the divine purpose through the divine plan, with us being a part of it all. Okay. So there is a spark of mind, but there is also a spark hanging from the flame. And that's what we want to distinguish between. There is both a spark of mind and a higher spark hanging from the divine flame by the finest thread of Fohat. And really, of course, finally, all sparks are the one original spark. And even within our microcosmic system, you know how it is that the monad descends onto the higher mental plane and creates the jewel in the lotus, which will be somehow involved in the cooperation with the solar angel and its implantation of the spark of mind in a more intense form than the mental unit, which has grown gradually through the approximation of instinct to mentality and through the animal kingdom too, at least that. Sometimes we're amazed at the what dogs and cats and I suppose elephants and horses can do. And if we go into the sea, we find the mammal dolphins and whales, and they have great intelligence. The mental unit is growing. Therefore, we are brought logically to the position that there will be, for these three types of mantrams, another mantram which will bring about their union and merging. Now, we've been dealing with mantrams here, and right now we're working on mantrams of fire. So, we could probably go back, and I'll rely upon you to do that, or will I do it myself? Mantrams of fire, that's one. And three types of mantrams. I think I'm just going to have to let that go because I can't go back into the... Certainly there are the three fires and maybe mantrams involved in the invocation of any of those fires, but he may mean something earlier, mantrams of power. He's given us quite a number of different types of mantrams. Mantrams maybe in calling in the devas and elementals, but there are more than three. Mantrams involved in the three departments. Well, I don't like to do it, but I'll let it pass as to what he means by the three types of mantrams and study that later in the outline form. Three types of mantrams, another mantram which will fuse them. Oh, well, okay. Now it seems a little bit clearer. Mantrams for Kundalini, for the processes, higher mind, and for the spark, or monad triad. Because we have, what did he say, quaternary, triad, and how did he put it? Fifth principle, meet and blend. So maybe those are the three that he's referring to. Sometimes these outlines get so detailed that if you're like me, you lose your way and have to go back and confirm it, and fifth principle. So maybe these are the three types of mantrams. Mantrams that affect the Kundalini and arouse it in the right manner. By the power of the vibration, they send it circulating through the centers according to their natural geometric progression. and I'd say determined by the monadic ray. A secondary branch of these mantrams deal with the spleen and the control of the pranic fluids for the purpose of health, for vitalization, and for affecting the fire at the base of the spine. And mantrams that work on the matter of the mental plane on one or other of its two main divisions. Oh goodness, there's just so many. So for the moment, an admission that I despair of ascertaining exactly which three he means by the three types of mantrams. But I guess maybe it's sufficient for us to, go over this again, and those with a real attention to outline detail can find it. So in addition, there will be for these three types of mantrams, another to bring about their merging and blending, which is probably, the synthetic state. So now what do we have in fact? And this seems to be an elaboration. An elaboration on the three. Maybe a diversification. So mantrams for Kundalini, arouse it in the right manner. So I'm just going to note them. And then maybe we can get order out of it at long last. So the Kundalini goes through the centers in the proper manner, and we've been told that triangular ascent or triangular vivification is determined pretty much by the monadic ray, with the tendency always for the third aspect to be stimulated first, but for the second ray monadic type, the second aspect point has just about an equal rapidity of unfoldment. And for the first aspect type, naturally, the first aspect will be undertaken most quickly, along with the third aspect, but love is more difficult for that type. Knowledge more difficult perhaps for the second aspect type, and maybe will more difficult for the third aspect type. So a secondary branch of these mantrams deals with the spleen and the control of the pranic fluids. For the purpose of health and vitalization, etc. For vitalization and affecting the fire at the base of the spine. So these seem to be related to the fires of Kundalini. Mantrams then that work on the matter of the mental plane on one of its two divisions, abstract or concrete, and which work there in a twofold manner, producing an increased capacity to think, wield, or manipulate mental matter, and acting as a stimulant to the causal body, fit it more rapidly as a vehicle of consciousness and prepare it for the final disintegration. So he seems to be, adding mantrams that are related to the three divisions that we have undertook, maybe quaternary, triad, and fifth principle. However, there's not perfect order, at least in my mind yet, about how to bring all of this together. So matter of the mental plane, and then here, mantrams for the spleen and vitalization. And here, the first one, mantrams that affect the Kundalini in general. The Kundalini kind of represents the first aspect of the third aspect. Maybe the spleen and vitalization represents more the second aspect, and mantrams for the mental plane more the third aspect. Two main divisions. It just seems like it's possible to affect certain results in any layer of the human energy system by the use of the proper mantrams. So, increased capacity to think and fit the causal body to become the vehicle of consciousness. Mantrams that evoke the God within and work specifically on the ego. Now, let's just say, is the ego considered to be the inner God, or are we talking about the monad? So basically, he's breaking down, he's diversifying upon the three that he's given us. Is the ego here considered the inner God? Well, you can consider the ego the inner God, yes, or you can consider, finally, the monad, the inner God. From thence they set up a strong vibration within the higher triad, and so cause the downflow of the monadic force into the causal body. Okay, there we go. And all these mantrams can be used separately, so it seems pretty clear that he is speaking of the three fires as they relate to the quaternary, to the triad, and to the fifth principle. So let's just say this section is definitely related to the foregoing on the three fires of the quaternary, the triad, and the fifth principle. So he's diversified them and says you can use them separately and they each achieve their own results, or you can blend them in some manner, or you can blend the three approaches, I think, would be a way of saying it. So it seems that we are in the realm of, we are still in the realm of quaternary, triad, and fifth principle. It seems so. And just a question of typing correctly. All right. Now he seems to be moving on to something else. He's been talking about 5 divisions of fire, and then 3 divisions of fire, and now something further. So now he begins or continues detailing certain types of mantras. Really, what he's doing is letting us know these mantras exist and approximately where they work, and maybe a little bit of what they do, but no further, no further. He just seeks to, I think, instill in us some kind of realization about the wondrous applicability of this field of mantras, and tries to inspire us to fit ourselves to use those of such mantras which are really useful to us as servers of the plan. Now, we can see that in the new schools, I'm sure this book will be studied. Why not? I mean, it'll be maybe a few hundred years old, but that's nothing when information is laid down which has not been able to be expanded, elaborated, because important keys were missing. So he does sum up. First, he sums up the 3 fires. First, he has us note 3 fires, and then speaks of diverse mantras associated with each fire. And then the transition point from what he calls the 5 fires of the macrocosm and microcosm. This is important, how he progresses. And all of this can be found in the departments. The departments in the solar system and the departments in the microcosm. So we are dealing with 5 departments through which fire demonstrates itself both in the macrocosm and the microcosm. So I think, that begins to make sense out of it all. It's intricate, and sometimes he says it's obscure. Okay. And at least to be aware that there is obscurity and that we cannot solve it all, but we can be acquainted with the general outline of that which has to be solved, is of value to us. Now, let's see. There's quite a bit more, and he Yeah, quite a bit. So this takes us to page 190, and already we're on page 187. Well, things go, somewhat slowly. There are 7 great mantrams, one for each ray, that, when used by the master or by a member of the hierarchy, combine all 3 effects. So he's heading for a description of the synthesis which we want to understand. They arouse Kundalini. They work on the causal vehicle, on the mental plane, and they set up a vibration in the triad. And let us say, and here the proper order is given. And we see that the 5th principle fires do refer to the causal body, egoic lotus. Well, he says that awe is a quality related somewhat to fear, and it's part of the worship process, but and he warns us away from it, telling us for instance, the lords of liberation are repelled or not interested at all in being worshipped with the accompaniments of awe and fear and so forth. But I do find this information, I must say, awesome. A great respect for the detailed, effective complexity of occultism arises in my mind, and I suppose in yours too. I don't see how any of us as students over a number of years can have any other reaction but some form of astonishment, amazement at the effective intricacy of the system, or intricate effectiveness. 7 great mantrams. They arouse Kundalini. They work on the causal vehicle. That's the mental 5th principle, and they set up the vibration of the triad, and thus affect an at-one-ment of the lower and higher and the 5th principle. So yes, the 5th principle does refer to the causal body, egoic logos. Sometimes, the order is given differently, and then later it gets straightened out. This is a reflection of what occurred at the coming of the Lords of the Flame. It leads to complete unification and marks the man out henceforth as one in whom love demonstrates in action by the aid of the illumined mind, and this is the man cultivated by the solar angel at individualization and in succeeding millions of years. So in the microcosm, a middle principle was established for some of the more advanced human beings or animal men of the time. And it brought the positive and negative electricity together. positive and negative electricity were together, brought together, and we became one of those in whom eventually the glory of the Christ principle would shine forth at the transfiguration. He seems to be now listing things, and we have a great diversity of mantrams. These are the 4 most important mantrams as regards individual human evolution and development, and are well known to all those who train pupils for initiation. So Master DK is one of the knowers of this. And okay, so what are they? Of the quaternary, of the causal body, egoic lotus, via the 5th principle, and of the triad, and also the ray mantrams, which bring together and blend all 3. Okay, so these are the 4 most important mantrams as far as the individual is concerned, because they seem to link up all aspects of the human being. And eventually a synthesis has to be created, a unification, that is the objective. And then again, finally, we have that body of fire that we're talking about on page, this time I get it correctly, 166 and 167 of A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. But, says the Tibetan, by themselves, even if discovered by the unready, they could accomplish little, for their use must be accompanied by the power that comes from the application of the rod of initiation. Okay, so maybe only those of a particular initiatory status can really use them, although there are other mantrams which, if used, calling elementals and lower devas, can be effective in a disastrous way, we've been told. This rod, through its surmounting diamond, and so we ask, is this the flaming diamond of true initiation? Focuses the 3 fires in the same way that a burning glass reacts to the sun and causes a conflagration. Well, Master Moria tells us to beware, he's using it in a different way, beware of the conflagration of the centers. Apparently it's an out of control condition that leads to great destruction. And we have heard of that strange phenomenon called spontaneous human combustion. You do see that people have been burnt up, basically, and not much remains of them. I wonder if it's through this other use of what is called the conflagration of the centers. Excuse me. I've here given you a lot of information in very few words. The matter is much condensed. I admire that, the ability to condense much into little. It seems to go with the first ray. It has a special significance for the man who nears the path of initiation, real initiation, I guess. And I think, we're dealing with probably he means the third degree. Ponder carefully on this, which is imparted for by rooting upon it in the silence of the heart. And he's not just using words there. The heart, in a way, is the causal body. Light may come, and the inner fire glow with greater heat, brooding upon it. Invoking, I suppose, as well, the intuition, or rather, evoking it. First you call, and then that's the invocation, and then the response comes, that's the evocation. Much in very few words. When it comes, there are sections on the 3 rods of initiation, but the one that particularly connects with the diamond is the flaming diamond rod. And let's just see that, yeah, I'm in the right place. That's important. And let's just see here. Rod, Bodh, Sattva. There is the rod of the Bodhisattva. Let's see if we can find any information about it. Does it have a sapphire or is it a diamond? It's not as, okay, 1 out of 8. And maybe there's some description. It's hidden in the heart of wisdom, that is in Shambhala. Yes, no, it is. It is surmounted by a diamond, which is not as great a diamond as the flaming diamond of the first Kumara, but is of rare beauty. At the time of initiation, when the electrical forces are tapped, this diamond revolves on its axis, picturing the rotary nature of atomic matter. So it's good we look that up because it is a diamond, and so maybe DK may be referring also to this rod. Then he goes and speaks of the central rod or serpent and of the flaming diamond. It's amazing the design of these inner instruments. Okay. I think, I'll try to finish this. If I can, it'll be a long program, but I'll do what I can. Other mantrams connected with fire can be further enumerated, and there are 2 groups that are contacted by the use of certain rhythmic sounds, and sounds, not necessarily words as we usually use words. So that adds to it an additional degree of complexity. And obviously we want to be under right instruction if we're to be able to handle any of this in the right way. He's just listing these things so we will have a more completed point of view, not that we can really do anything about it, because the power of the rod of initiation is required, and maybe in the initiation ceremony itself, the candidate is given that which he must pronounce or sound. The fire elementals and their various hosts in the bowels of the earth, and in the air above the earth. So indeed, not only on the mental plane. He was talking about fire elementals before, and he was talking about their microcosmic, the elementals of the mental plane particularly. But there are others so deep in the bowels of the earth and in the air above the earth, and the devas of the mental planes, who are essentially the devas of fire. So let's just say contacted through rhythmic sounds. And obviously that's not going to be written down. That has to be communicated verbally, orally somehow. So these are the two types that can be contacted through rhythmic sounds. And maybe, red is good. I have no, thoroughgoing method here of using the colors. With the mantrams affecting the elementals of fire, there is naught to be said or imparted. They are in many ways the most dangerous and most powerful of the elementals who attend to the earth economy. For one thing, they far outnumber all the other elementals and are found on every plane from the highest to the lowest. Well, there we go. So elementals found on every plane, and not just the mental plane, of course. The elements of water or earth are found only in certain localities or spheres in the solar system, whilst the next most numerous are those of air. So water and, see, we don't have, well, eventually we will not have dense physical planets. They will be etheric in nature, but we'll just have to say there are probably certain spheres in the solar system where water and earth can be found, elementals of. So he gives us nothing there, and except the information that they are numerous and dangerous, and earlier that in Atlantis, the mantrams for calling these elementals were common knowledge. Okay. Um, so in order of quantity, or of, which we say, numerousness, this is, say, earth, or let's see, no, fire, uh, sorry, fire, air, earth, and water in the order of their numerousness. Or maybe there's a better word. So the elementals attend to the earth economy, and they are found in the earth and above the earth. The fire elementals are found in all these places. So, we might say, so the Agni Chaitans are included. And also those of the mental plane, yes. And, do they have anything to do with water, the surface of the earth? But certainly deep in the bowels of the earth, the Agni Chaitans can be found. And, example, volcanoes. Okay. Mantrams, calling them, controlling and dismissing them. Oh, there it is again. Were in common use among the Atlanteans. The dangers aroused and the menace stalking the land through the indiscriminate use of elementals so disturbed the accurate working of the logoic plans. Now, maybe even the plans of the solar logos. When that word logoic is used, we don't know. Accurate. So disturbed the working out of the logoic plans and so displeased the guides of the race that the knowledge was withdrawn. And we discussed how that can happen even just through neglect and not repeating it, and allowing those who have it to die away and then not renewing it. The Atlantean root race passed away through disasters by water, by floods, by submergings. Probably many of us have memories of those things deep, deep down in the subconscious. When you remember that water is the natural enemy of fire and that the two groups of elementals have no point of at-one-ment at this stage, you may be able to understand an interesting point about the Atlantean cataclysms. What occurs to me is steam and glamour and quenching of even higher fires. That occurs to me, but we'd have to ponder on it, obviously. So displeased. The Atlantean cataclysms. Almost all human beings who are present on Earth now have passed through those Atlantean cataclysms. Maybe a few have come in on the Aryan race for special purposes, but during the Atlantean race, the moon chain types came in, and also the Lemurian individualizers reached a degree of maturity, and the brothers of darkness from the previous solar system were present. Must have been quite a time. Mantrams calling the fire devas are equally well guarded, not only because of the dangers involved, but because of the obstructions in time that are caused when these devas are heedlessly called and held by mantric charm from pursuing their necessary vocations, their tasks. A charm holds one. And when we are charmed by someone, we are, fatally attracted to that person, let us say. The charm has to be broken. And the word harm is right there in charm. You look so charming, it is said. You look enthralling, it is said. You look captivating, it is said. Those words do not necessarily represent something positive. So we can interfere with the divine plan by needless calling upon certain devas just to prove that we can. And so, at least let us do no harm here and not be in the way. Heedlessly. In other words, we don't heed the consequences. We simply call. Or we call for personal reasons. Okay, so I want to say that we can call heedlessly or strictly personal material reasons, not justifiable. Okay. Under these two groups of mantric forms will be found many lesser groups which work specifically with different bands of elementals and devas. Well, wouldn't you know it? I mean, there's got to be a degree of complexity in any of these outlines. And DK, as he says, I'm presenting this to you briefly. A lot of information packed into brief form. All right. We're slowly getting there. Page 189 now. We have here enumerated 6 groups of mantrams connected with fire. And we can go back and count them up, see what they were. There are still a few more which I might briefly enumerate, where we've had 5 divisions of, what does he call it, departments. And then certain mantrams that bring all the mantrams connected with those departments together. So however he gets the 6, we can review how he counts the 6. 6 groups of mantrams connected with fire. At least we have a 5 and a 1 somewhere. And we also have a 3 and a 1 somewhere. But at least we know that that all of these mantrams he's talking about are in this final section on fire that we've been speaking of. Before that, he mentions many more. So somehow, when somebody has the time, they can bring together all of these mantrams, types of mantrams he has mentioned. It just seems like the work of mantram in general is part of the meditative summoning process, and he's playing with fire, but then he's being more specific in this last section that we are studying. Purificatory mantrams that awaken a fire that purifies and burns on one of the 3 lower planes. And we might say that this could be part of the burning ground experience. And this is affected through the activity of elementals controlled by fire devas and under the direct guidance of an initiate or disciple for some specific purificatory end. This end may be to cleanse some one of the bodies or to purify a locality, a house, or a temple. Okay. So, purificatory mantrams that awaken. A fire that purifies. It's just an overwhelming amount of possibilities here, at least at our present stage. We consider the number of possibilities overwhelming, but it's not only for the human being, it's for the locality, for the home, for the temple. You know, it seems like exorcismic somehow. Lately, it's been interesting that there's been an article about how Pope Pius XII, tried to exorcise Hitler, sensing, that he was possessed, which is what DK basically tells us. And lately, this idea of exorcism has come into the front pages of the news feeds. So it is suspected, but for very different reasons, that the demons are at work. Unfortunately, it generally means possessing the ones one disagrees with, But okay, these factors of obsession are real. And Master Moria tells us there has been a epidemic of obsession. He was writing in the late 20s, I think, in the 30s, an epidemic of obsession. And that certainly led to the possibility of the precipitation of the Second World War. We're also told that the entities obsessing Hitler and his evil gang abandoned them at the end because they were of no more use, and they were just left basically as husks of their former self. I'm using my own words here, but no longer of any power, and all of them extremely psychologically damaged. There are other mantras here, the calling down the fire for the magnetization of talismans, of stones, and of sacred places, sacred spots. All of this is going to come into strong use in a seventh ray age. Don't we think so? I think so. And mantras that bring about healing through the occult use of flame. He hasn't given us too many of those. He's careful about that. There's kind of a joke that goes around with esoteric healing, you know, that the esoteric healer can't wait to get his hands on you, you know. But people try certain methods of healing which are probably not legitimate under the circumstances. He's listening for our expanded knowledge. There are the mantras used by the Manu in manipulating that which is necessary in the moving of continents and the submerging of lands. You begin to think that the Manu must have been very much involved in the, whatever Manu it was at that time, in the Atlantean submergences. And there is the Manu of the mantrams of the Bodhisattva in stimulating the inner fire in each human being. This is the subjective fire. I suppose the fire of the inner God. And then the mantras used by the Mahachohan in his work with the intelligence, or the fifth principle. And here we have that fifth principle again. Now it's sometimes considered the middle principle, but it's much more wide-ranging than just that. Probably when we look at what's considered the middle principle of man, it's a combination of love and intelligence, of a 2 and 5 combination. All these mantric forms and many others exist, and maybe he, elaborates on this a little bit here. Because our telltale dots are there. The first step towards the attainment of these mantras is the acquirement of the faculty of occult meditation. For it is not the sounding of the words alone that brings about the desired end, but the mental concentration that visualizes the results to be attained. So in a way, he's warning us away from thinking that if we go on a hunt for certain forms of words, we will discover the mantras which will be effective in allowing us to do these many, many things. Whatever we do in line with the use of mantras has to be plan fit, goal oriented, and the goal has to be purposeful goal. So we require much patience, much patience. So this must be accompanied also by the will that causes those results to be dominated by the one who chants the sounds. Otherwise, things just get out of control. You know, the Walt Disney film long ago with poor Mickey Mouse as the sorcerer's apprentice, just precipitating through laziness an activity which overwhelmed him until what was it? The sorcerer came home. So there has to be the ability to control. These mantric forms are dangerous, and are dangerous and useless apart from the concentrated mental equilibrium of the man and his power to control and to vitalize. This sixth letter has been quite a long one, hasn't it? Now, just going through it like this, well, we'll get some idea. But obviously, DK, thinking far ahead, is also thinking of the curriculums or the main curricula of the new esoteric schools in their different branches, preparatory and advanced. And who's to say this was written 100 years ago? Will it have no further use than simply as an introduction? There is a lot of information given here, not just in this chapter, but information given in such a way that it will definitely be foundational for the students of the new esoteric schools, especially the ones that are more like a university, a good university, but plus the esoteric content, which presently universities do not have. Okay, well, this is a long letter, and sometimes I go through the whole letter and sometimes I stop. It just depends on how much time I do have to do these and how much energy to do them. Does it help to take all of this slowly and look at the ramifications, some of them, maybe some very few, of what is stated and try to unbundle unbundle what is given in very condensed form. I remember that as kids we used to take the outer covering of a straw and compress it so it just was tiny with many folds. Then you pour a drop of water on it and it just expands. Well, all of these seeds can be dramatically expanded and connected up with many different fields of study and occultism, and have their points of development in many of the different books that he has written. So we're just getting started, really, in trying to discover the capacity for pure reason within ourselves. First, the pure reason of the higher mind, and then the pure reason of the Buddhic plane. Okay, well, that's certainly enough for tonight. You know, maybe almost 3 hours of programming, and we have finished with program 41, and this has been on the 20th of October. 2020, and we've gone from page 183 to 190. And then our next work will be on the last division of our sixth letter, as he says. He certainly has an organized mind, and doing things this way, it's sometimes difficult for me to follow the organization, but I'm sure it can be done. So whatever day we end up doing this, maybe tomorrow, who knows, 21st, let's see, it'll be program 42. And then we will continue. Well, it does seem to go on, doesn't it? There's something about a collective approach, because it's not just the individual who's doing this. So basically, we come to letter 7 in another 13 pages from where we are right now. And pretty soon we'll be getting to the, well, not immediately, but to the new esoteric schools, about which I've already written an extensive commentary. So we'll have to see whether the writing should just hold, or whether we can or should discuss this. I can see that the next letter has some fascinating material and a lot of occult blinds that will stop us from realizing too quickly what the formulas are. The sphere of knowledge that we've managed to create begins to seem smaller and smaller and smaller the farther one goes in reading about and, well, understanding somewhat what Master DK has given us. So we'll just forge ahead. We have another, we're over the halfway point. We have another 150 pages left to go, and we've done 190 pages and 41 programs. So if I choose to discuss in this manner the new esoteric schools, as I said, about which a quite extensive commentary has already been written, then, you know, we'll have another 40 or 50 programs going here. And then it'll all be set up for you all to listen to it and extract what you can, and find those points of interest and those hints, or maybe points of difference, you know, in between what you think and what I've tried to express here. It's a very rich source, very rich. So then all of us, Tuya and myself and all the members of the communications team, you know, we're wishing you the best. It is a great privilege to be able to study together and to be able to study what Master DK has given us. As he said, more than we can ever absorb, and I would say more than we can appreciate having been given. We still don't know the scope of what has been given. And even if it is just the ABCs of occultism, you know, it certainly is overwhelming to our particular sphere of knowledge. So we have the food, you know, and we have to eat it, assimilate it, and apply it. And then we're in a position to really help with the understanding of the divine plan, a more type of, let's call it, synthetic understanding. than we have been able to achieve before this material was given to us. Okay, friends, we'll see you at the next occasion. Lots of love, many blessings, and see you before long.